You've been hit by a smooth criminal.
A pair of winning coaches from the round 18 action. Geelong is sitting atop the table. Jeremy Cameron caught the eye with that from the boundary, which seemed like a pretty good bar to set. And then Sam Draper just said, hold my beer, as he went about his work with the mullet flowing yesterday. And when the Ebert and Siskel reviews came out, probably not encouraging lip reading. It was 2 thumbs up, shall we say. Essendon coach Ben Rutten, Ben, great to have you on the program.
Jared, how are you, Robbo?
Hello, Ben.
Chris Scott, hello.
Hello.
A camera a bit close to your face, you think, Ben?
Yeah, it's just practising a bit of my French there, I think.
What's your slightly more considered review of it now that you've seen it about 100 times?
Oh, look, it was fantastic. I mean, I think it was at that point in the game too, in the last quarter, where the game needed a bit of a lift for the crowd, and he certainly delivered. But it's one of those things with a coach. He's a young, athletic, passionate ruckman, and we're still trying to teach him the fundamentals of the game. And when he goes and does something like that, it makes life a bit hard for me. But no, we.
Have a look at this, Chris.
It's a pretty
One hand
unique
take,
skill set.
one hand take.
That's the right move.
Thank God Guelphy gave it back to him, he said.
Get out.
They're housemates, those two.
Oh, I know. And Ben. Anyway. Is this the best team? It's hard to quantify this with an answer. I went through the last 10 years of your teams where they finished on the ladder, a couple of prelims, grand final. I was almost going to argue that this might be the best team you've coached. You haven't won anything yet, but right now, where do you sit with this team against other teams that you've put together?
I'd need to think about it more to give a intelligent answer, but off the top of my head, the 2011 team was pretty good.
Yep.
The thing that I'm most proud of is that in that 10 to 12 year period post that, we've got 2 or 3 players left from that team, and it's been a complete rebuild since then. And we've been consistent enough that we haven't had top 10 picks. So we're wrapped with the team we've got. There's no doubt about that. We have some really good players across the board. But it has sort of, when we even joke about it internally, they're a bunch of misfits, a lot of them. Tom Atkins has become a really good midfielder. He's come through our VFL program. Blitzards is a steeplechaser. O'Connor and Turi are Irishmen. Jack Henry was a rookie from, he grew up 800 metres down the road from Cardinia Park. It's not as if they're all blue bloods.
Yep.
But I'm really happy I'm coaching this team, I'll put it that way.
Is Jeremy Cameron panning out the way that you hoped when you recruited him?
Yeah, he is. We were always optimistic that this year would be better than last year. Even in the pre-season last year, we didn't get our group together until late January, which was, I think, the same as most teams. But we played a grand final in October, and he was looking good, but he wasn't training with Hawkins. And then the week before round 1, he did a hamstring, ended up doing 3 for the year. Not only did we not get cohesion in games, we didn't get it at training either. So this pre-season, we started to see what it could be like. But even then, we didn't have Rowan the first half of this year either. Stengel came in and did a job. So I think we're still building that cohesion. We hope it ends up being greater than the sum of its parts, but I'm sure Ben sees this as well. You see Draper do something. There's one thing a game with Cameron, I just sit there and go, it's got nothing to do with us. He's just a star.
Last time we were on, we were talking about planning the season out, and I touched on it this morning. Part of any team, if you're going to play finals, is planning the run home that you actually peak. I think, to borrow your word, you want to peak at the right time of the year. You're peaking pretty strongly now, and I suspect you're going to say we can get better. How much planning is going in so that this group that you got, which is performing really well, actually gets sharper, better, tighter in September?
Yeah, well, a lot of planning. That's really what we're doing.
Like what? Can you give us
some
hint?
Well, we've been pretty upfront over the last, I would say almost over the last 10 years. Like 2011, we had different reasons for managing players. We were trying to get some younger players in, and we learned from experience a little bit that not only did... Because the theory then was, and I remember the conversation with Steve Hockey and Neil Baum. I was a young coach, didn't know what I was doing, but I looked at Mitch Duncan and Dan Menzel and Nathan Vardy. Alan Christen said, we've got to get these guys in. Baum said, yeah, no worries. Who's going out? the ins are always easy. And so we sort of came up with a plan to sort of cycle them through. It's not new in world sport, it's a bit new in AFL circles. But what we saw towards the end of that year was a couple of our good players, missing a game here and there, had them in better shape later in the year. And that's what we've tried to do with varying success. So this year, it's been forced upon us a bit. So if you have a close look at our team throughout this year, we've gone big chunks without Jack Henry, Paddy Dangerfield, Tom Stewart, Gary Rowan, Max Holmes, Radigalia. There's a big list of them. So
do you have to rest? The point I'm making, do you have to? Because Richmond, for an example, in 2018, they were going to finish top 2. So what they did, I think they rested a couple of players, and they won a final. It was a bit of a scratchy final, but they won it. Then they got to the prelim and got blown out of the water. And I think if Richmond had if they were honest, they would say, we got that wrong.
Yeah, well,
we got that wrong about resting too many players.
Yeah, there's this real balance between the art and science of it all, and whatever happens, the retrospective analysis will be right. That part's easy. The forecasting's hard, and now the pre-finals buys made it harder. So you've got to be really careful because you could be facing a situation if you're the best team. Melbourne clearly handled it really well last year. I think Bulldogs were dealt a shocking hand. Then COVID threw up a lot of curveballs, but there is a real balance between cohesion, which we value really highly, and managing load as well, and that's a really imprecise thing to manage. Well, we're not saying we've got it right, but we do have a theory that we've doubled down on.
Ben, you were last here in the formative rounds of the season. How rocky has the path of 2022 been for you?
Yeah, look, it hasn't probably, or certainly hasn't been as smooth as we would have liked. And I think we've been pretty open as a club, that we're certainly a developing squad, and we I've got a lot of belief about where the group's at and where our club's going. That doesn't always mean that it's going to be a really smooth sailing process to get there, and certainly the results haven't gone the way we would have liked throughout that early parts of the season, but they've certainly been really important in shaping where we're at now, and I think it's going to be a really important part to the back end of the season for us. And probably we've had some exposure to some players that we think are going to be really good players for us, and that's part of our journey about where we're at the moment.
At 2-10, have you had your dark days? Have you had the days where you are aware that the outside world has been coming at you?
Yeah, look, there's certainly an awareness of that. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, it's not where I live and where I spend my attention, though. It's been, challenging at times to maintain my discipline about where I spend my attention and where I put my focus and what my role is to support the players and continue to lead and direct the club in the way, hold that vision, that space for that vision for us to move into. And I think that's been a really good learning period for me as a less experienced coach, and we put a lot of work in. The last sort of month to 6 weeks we've been playing some pretty consistent footy, and those periods through the early stages, there's a lot of work getting done then that it's starting to bear a bit of fruit now. So there's always a bit of a lag effect with when you start doubling down on a few areas that you don't quite see the results, probably 4 to 6 weeks potentially after the fact.
How reassuring was it when the club announced that they're going to have an internal review at the same time Paul Brasher and Xavier Campbell come out and said Ben Rutten is safe? Were you thinking at any time that my position might be on line here?
Yeah, no, I think it was. I mean, I've got a really strong relationship with Josh Marnie, Xavier Campbell, Paul Brasher as well, and we talk weekly, a couple of times a week, and it's really important that we're really aligned with what we're doing. And certainly we weren't having, from a results point of view, the season we liked, and part of the process of getting better and continually defining your best is reviewing and making sure that we're looking at all areas. I think most clubs probably do that, especially come the mid-season, regardless of where they're at. Part of it's about reviewing and reflecting. Part of it will be about planning for the back half of the year, probably similar to what Chris was talking about with planning about how do we build for the back end of the season. So,
do you think you'll be coaching us the next year? Do you think these last 5 weeks have actually absolutely cemented your position at Essendon?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that I think there's no doubt. I mean, I've got a lot, as I said, I've got a lot of belief about what this group is capable of, and we're a developing group, and we're starting to learn about each other. And the last few weeks has been really important for us to get a bit of belief and a bit of confidence in what we've been doing.
So something changed in the Essendon game, the 159th. The club, sorry. The team, it was really competitive against Carlton. It lost. So something happened around about that time because you went on a pretty good winning streak. So when you've got a game plan that you train all summer and then it changes at that stage, how difficult is that for a coach to say, right, this is the track we've been going down, but that's not working. Stop, everyone. We're going to go down this track a little bit, and it's proven to get the sort of the result that you want and Essendon fans have won. Are you stubborn and say, let's stay with that, or is it, no, we've got to change tactic?
Yeah, look, it's about... I mean, we've got some really smart people at our club. It's certainly not just about me, you know, whether they be assistant coaches, support staff around to be able to get the information, you know, certainly listen to the players. And our leadership group in particular.
Were they really strong through that period?
Yeah, they were. They were great. I mean, I think it was probably around the Sydney game. You know, it was about round 9. I think we had a really poor performance up in Sydney. And that was kind of an opportunity for us to kind of really consolidate and almost simplify a bit parts of our game. You know, get them back to the fundamental contest work. You know, which you know, we know is important in any AFL game, and you know, really get to try to build some momentum around that. You know, and kind of build it out from there. And I think that's been an important part of that process over the last sort of 6 or 7 weeks.
So, is this the football that will ultimately see your group be successful? Are we witnessing the back half of a season that will set you up for success?
Yeah, look, I think so. I mean, the style and the way we're playing is certainly... I mean, I think that's always kind of going to be evolving, and depending on the personnel you've got available and depending on, you know, the opposition, there's always little tweaks that we can make. But fundamentally, I think we're starting to see more and more of what this group's capable of and, you know, starting to look at what it might look like moving forward. Congratulations.
It's been a really good turnaround the last 5 weeks. One of the good news stories at Essendon has been the return of Michael Hurley in the VFL on the weekend. And again, everyone who follows football admires the way Hurley goes about his job. What did it mean for the club, and what did it mean for Hurley to get back out there and have a run?
Oh, look, it was awesome. I mean, I think someone said it was over 650 days since he'd last put the jumper on, and he's such a loved and respected player and person at our football club, and there was a lot of uncertainty, you know, around his injury, his infection in his hip, the operation he had, and what that was going to look like in his return. It was kind of unprecedented in AFL football, so there was no roadmap for him. But he was really strong and really clear right from the start. He wanted to get back and play in competitive football. Yeah, once we heard that, it was certainly on me to support him and making sure that we're creating that pathway for him. And for him to get to run out on the weekend, you know, he got close a couple of times. He had little calf strains. He got COVID a couple of weeks ago. We had a bye last week as a club. So there was lots of little interruptions along the way. It was by far a smooth rehabilitation process. But to get him back running around again, you know, we had a great crowd at Windy Hill. I was there for the first half, and yeah, I think that the hallmark of him is he's always put other people first, and you know, we've got a lot of younger key position players on our list, and the work he's been able to do with them over the last 18 months to 2 years has been pretty special. So he's certainly a popular figure amongst our players.
Is there a scenario where he plays a senior game before the end of the year?
Yeah, look, as I said, all those things that we've been working towards, it's been step by step, day by day in some circumstances. So
is there a scenario?
Certainly we're looking to see how he pulls up each week and keep pushing him along.
Is Dyson Heppel getting a new contract for next year?
Sorry, what was it?
Is Dyson Heppel getting a new contract for next year?
Yeah, we absolutely want him at our club next year. There's no doubt about that. And I know Hep's, you know, keen to stay, so it's just about getting the finer details sorted.
All right, we'll broaden our conversation. I'm curious as to what the COVID reality looks like inside your clubs at the moment as the world contracts just a little bit in a way that we do know. Tomorrow night, Lachie Neale, the Lions back on the winners list, and we'll keep our Essendon theme going because Zach Merritt is due with us tomorrow night as well.